Testing, testing, one, two, three. All right, guys, let's talk about something important. So let's talk about this, okay? Where this is where most guys or most people don't actually, they don't hate being wrong themselves because they just hate what it says about who they are as a person. So the crazy thing is that these are the same people that love feeling like they are being wronged too. Okay? Because when you are wrong, you have to take a lot of personal responsibilities for yourself. You have to, be like, "Damn, I actually made a mistake." But when you are wronged, you get to protect your ego. You get to protect yourself, right? You're in this comfort zone. And so that's why most people stay stuck. Now, if you're new here, my name is Mitchell. I'm a relationship coach. And in today's live video, I'll be talking about most people hate being wrong, but love feeling wronged. It's gonna take me a while to say that correctly. But anyways, okay. Let's talk about being wrong attacks your identity. Okay, being wrong. So when you are wrong, okay, most people don't hate being wrong because of the mistakes. They hate what it means about them. So it's more of a personal attack. So when you are wrong, your interpretation of yourself is that like, well, maybe I'm not as smart or I'm not as capable, I'm not as competent or as aware as I thought I was. Which means that you have to put in a lot of time, a lot of effort in order to become better. So you have to make adjustments. So it creates this type of threat to your ego, even if you know you're wrong. Like you know you're wrong. Like we just can't accept that. But then we have to understand, like, hey, look, there's more to this. And not only am I wrong, I have to correct that behavior so that it doesn't happen again, which requires a lot of time, humility. Now, I want to talk about an example that happened. And this was a lot like it took me a while to kind of sit down and talk about this or think about it and then write it down. And so let me just give you an example of what just happened a few days ago, okay? I want to say, wait, when did this happen? Today's Saturday. So about 5 days ago. So less than a week ago, okay? So the scenario went like this. So it was me and my girl. We were out shopping. We were just buying some groceries. Hello, hello. Yeah, we were just out. We were just buying some groceries and you know, out of nowhere, there's this one lady, I was pushing my cart and she was pushing her cart. So our carts were like this, right? We were facing each other. And so I didn't really know what was going on. She gave me this look, but I don't read minds. I mean, it looks like she was a little kind of annoyed, but I'm also like, well, unless she talks to me, I'm just gonna leave my cart here. Why? Because my girlfriend just walked like over there to the other side. And I'm like, well, let me just go with her because we need some apples, right? And the cart was parked right next to the orange section. Anyways, what ended up happening afterwards was she gave me this like attitude, this upset look, like, oh my, are you kidding me? Type of look. Goes over to my cart and shoves it and moves it away. Now, at that point, I was like, wait, what the hell? Just like, this isn't normal behavior. But it was a little surprising to me, and so when that happened, I was like, "Alright, I I need to talk to her." Like, I was pissed because I was like, "Look, if you want" basically, I wanted to talk to her. I went up to her after maybe about a minute, I went back, and I had to think about what I was gonna do first. So I went up to her, and I was like, "Hey, excuse me." I was like, "Look, if you want me to move my cart, I would have been more than happy to move my cart, but just don't move other people's cart. Like, that's not right." And then she goes and she vocalizes and she was pissed off. She was like, "Oh, this is your cart, huh? This is yours. I don't see your name on it." It's like a very rhetorical kind of question. And then I'm just like, okay, this got a little under my skin. And so I kind of stared her down. Now, what I did next, I wasn't proud of it, but let's put it like this. No one was hurt. No one was hurt. But what I did next, I was not proud of it. Okay. I saw her again somewhere in the vicinity, and I pushed my cart onto her cart a little bit. My girlfriend didn't like that. And I understand. I understand. I was in the wrong. I was petty. I was being petty. Okay. Still got to work on that. But now, as I was, I went back home. A lot of things happened. I was pissed off. It consumed me for a long time. And it wasn't until I really got to sit down and think about what all went down. I have to. What's up, Linda? So I had to, really sit down and think about what all went down that day. So it took me a few days. I got over it within what, a day, which took way longer than I expected. But then afterwards, I was like, well, all right, well, what the hell just happened? Why do I feel like this? How do I become better? And where was I wrong? And what, there's so many moving parts, like what was going on. And so this is how I broke everything down, and I wrote it down for you guys. So number one, when all those happened, right? Number one, the first thing was it was a violation of like the social norm kind of thing. It wasn't normal to act like that, to just shove someone else's cart, right? It's just not right. So, but then at that point, what it really reflected to me was it wasn't really about the cart that she was pushing. It was the fact that when she did that, it felt like it was really disrespectful for me, disrespecting me, right? And now for a lot of guys, especially like men that, well, for a lot of guys, it's like respect has a huge part of their identity. And so when that happened, it wasn't really so much about the cart. It was more of the what the cart symbolized. And when she pushed it, I was like, whoa, am I someone that she could just fucking disrespect? Is that something that could just happen to me? Absolutely not, right? And so it became this challenge mode. Now, so my response when I went back to her and I said, hey, look, don't be doing this, blah, 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 blah. Like, you just don't be pushing other people's carts. Her passive aggression and how confrontational she was, that type of attitude, where she basically uses very rhetorical question like, oh, this is your car. I don't see your name on it, type of. It basically, for her, the reason why she said that was basically to deflect any type of accountability that she has. So, okay, it's like she wants to take no responsibility, no accountability, and basically she's trying to assert a lot of dominance. And at this point, like I said, I was feeling challenged. Now, we could put it like this. If that has happened to you, we could all agree that she was rude, and there's no question about that. She was rude, no question about that, right? And so, but how I felt came from a place of where I attached meaning to. Now, this is where it gets interesting because I was like, wait, why did it consume me so much? Like, so how I felt from that came from a meaning that was attached to it. So now, if I were to look at it in this perspective, where if you interpret it as this person is rude, there's a lot lower emotional charge. Okay. It's a lot lower emotional charge. If I interpret, or if you interpret this as this person is disrespecting me, then there's a much higher emotional charge. You see where I'm going with this? And so when all that happened, right, there was a really, really high emotional charge for me. So what really bothered me personally was my emotions at that point got the best of me because I'm gonna be real. It was a little shock to me. I'm usually not around type of people that's like that. But hey, it's people. I don't know what they're going through, whatever. It was a shock to me. Okay. So it caught me off guard for a little bit. But like I said, what upset me most is that my emotions got the best of me. And because I was clouded and I didn't choose to walk away at that point, like I took it as this person disrespected me. So my emotional charge was really, really high. Now, I wish I could have just laughed it off and you'd be like, hey, this person was just having a bad day or whatever, right? But that tells me that it requires a lot of high emotional detachment. Like, meaning I'm so I'm feeling good right now. I just don't need you to ruin that shit for me. That requires a lot. But like I said, I was caught off guard. Now, let's talk about why people resist this, right? Admitting faults feels like there's losing status. Okay. It feels like I'm gonna lose status if I admit fault. Especially, like I said, for men who like to tie their identity to the level of competence, right? And respect. So but I have to realize that like walking away isn't weakness. It's basically me refusing to let this type of low level behavior pull me down. And it did. And so that's why I was more upset about that rather than, oh, she just shoved my cart or she just disrespected me. Now, at the very surface level, that's all I was thinking. This bitch disrespected me. But when I went back home, I really sat down and I thought about it. I was like, wait, what the hell just happened? Like, I wasn't wrong for this. I mean, I just left my cart. She shoved it, right? So, when it all comes said and done, the fact of the matter is, people don't argue to find the truth. They argue most of the times to protect their identity. So, whatever she was going through that day, she was having a hard time. She was probably pissed off. Maybe a lot of things was not going well for her in her life. And I was just so happened to be that person that had a cart in front of her. And so I became the target. So, like I said, what I didn't like was how I let that drag me down personally. And so that is something that I was working towards. I'm like, okay, now that I have a better understanding, I'm like, okay, I'm less upset. It makes a lot more sense because remember, behind anger is always fear. And I was pissed. I was fearful because at the time I didn't know what was going on. I was fearful because I didn't know, like, I should have responded way better. But then again, we're human. Feelings are feelings, and at the time, this is how I felt. I'm glad no one was hurt, but at the time, I was heated, and so really taking a step back and trying to understand that perspective made me realize I was like, look, hey, we're just human. We all get pissed off sometimes. And maybe she's just a miserable person, right? Misery loves company. And so that's what it was. Now, let's move on to being wrong, where it has to force some sense of responsibility on other people. Okay. Now, if you are wrong, like you're wrong. Okay. Now, now you have to do something about that. You have to realize, you have to be aware. And then on top of that, you have to apologize, basically, whether it's to other people or yourself. You have to adjust your behavior and you have to admit that, like, look, you misjudged something. So it takes a lot of accountability and a lot of humility and a lot of action, not just awareness. Okay. Because a lot of people will be like, yeah, I know I was wrong, but fuck them. That doesn't do anything. Right. So, like I said, it requires humility, it requires a lot of action, and it does not just require awareness. And so I was wrong for continuing to make sense out of nonsense at that point with that lady in the grocery store. It's just it's like me getting mad at a fish for swimming. It's, like I said, misery loves company. And whatever she was going through, I let that get to me, and I should not have let that happen. And so for me, like I said, that's a learning perspective. But now let's talk about why people hate it though, okay? The reason why people hate being wrong and because it forces this type of responsibility is responsibility removes a lot of the comfort of blaming circumstances, like blaming for things that happen. Now, if you really take another step back, look at it from this perspective where growth requires a lot of effort. And most people prefer being right and stuck in right and stuck. They're just stuck in this little circle over being wrong and improving their lives. They rather be stuck and be like, you know what? I was right. They're comfortable. I don't need to do anything. They are wrong. And so being wrong puts you in a position of accountability and responsibilities. An opportunity for growth. It's just that most people, they aren't trained to handle that type of situation. They don't like feeling uncomfortable. But I know when I could be wrong and I want to become better. And so that's something that I have control over. I have no control over how she feels, what she's going to do, and how she's going to react. But I have total control on how I would like to respond to that. Okay. So now let's move on to the other side of the coin. Okay. Feeling wronged, like someone did you wrong. Okay. Feeling wronged feeds your ego. Okay. In some sense, you feel like you're the hero. You became the hero, right? So let's flip the script now. Being wrong feels good. Why? Because it protects your identity, right? Versus being wrong, like it hits your ego, like, damn, I fucked up. And so if someone disrespects you or ghosts you, right, or lies to you, you don't really have to question yourself. You're justifying yourself. You're like, hey, you know what? They fucked up. They're the one that ghosted me. Like I would have done it different. I would have done this. A lot of people don't like confrontation. So they might say something, but they might not actually do it. So for them, it's like, damn, it's all on them. They're the one that's being disrespectful. So now it creates this narrative where I'm the good person, they messed up. I don't have to do anything about that. So, like I said, someone ghosts you, lies to you, whatever, right? Instead of reflecting on it, it's easier to say that, oh, they're just immature. I deserve better. I don't need someone like this. It is. It is way easier because you just dismiss that. Now, they cheated on you and you say, well, it's all her fault. Everybody could agree if someone cheated on a significant other, you could say that it is their fault. Am I right? They cheated, they did the act, infidelity, they should be removed from your life. I don't need to do anything. But a growth mindset, someone that has a growth mindset will be like, well, what were some of the red flags that I overlooked when I was in that relationship? What caused her to cheat on me? Not to say that if there was anything that you could have done to stop her from cheating, if she was going to cheat on you, she's going to cheat on you. But what could you have done better in a relationship so that you learn so that you don't carry it over to the next? So, another question could be, well, was I only focused on my attractions and not hers? Where I'm only looking at how much I like her and she's constantly disrespecting me. Like, what were some of those red flags? And it's very, very easy to miss that, especially when you're so tied up with emotions. You're not educated in this sense, and so you go online, you try to get some tips and tricks to reverse some of the her behavior or whatever, but nothing ever sticks. And so why people love being wrong, right? Why people love being wrong is that there's no accountability on their end. You don't have any accountability or responsibility. We could just point the finger and say, "Look, they fucked up." You get to feel morally superior. You're like, "Damn, I'm the better person. I was doing everything right. I was trying to make money, you know, put a roof over our head. I bought groceries, and then now she cheats." It's like it's easy to just blame somebody else, but no one's perfect. And also, it's very emotionally validating if you think about it, right? Anger feels very, very powerful compared to self doubt. Like, damn, I fucked up. And so when you put all those together, feelings is what drives a lot of this. And depending on whether you're aware of it, and on top of whether or not you're going to do anything about that, that's a lot on you. And that explains a lot about you as a person and your character. Now, lastly, feeling wrong, okay? Same thing. Feeling wrong keeps you stuck. You can see how it keeps you stuck, right? Even though it feels very powerful, it feels very empowering. The trap is what feels good isn't always what helps you grow, okay? Just because it feels good doesn't mean it's going to help you grow. When you stay in "I was wrong" type of mindset, you stop asking yourself these type of questions where like, well, what could I have done better? What could I have done differently so that this does not happen again? You give away a lot of your control because your focus is on them and not yourself. You see that? And that's where a lot of people make the mistake where they're thinking like, "Hey, you know what? They did me dirty. They should back out from my life." I completely agree with that. But what I would say is no matter how good or bad your relationship ends or relationship with other people, strangers, like you're shopping for groceries and someone is in front of you with your cart and they shove it, right? Whatever it is, there's always a place of growth. And for me, it was a little bit, like, embarrassing, but I had to sit that and that's why I sat in this room. I sat down and I was like, "Shit, Mitchell, you weren't perfect either. You coulda handled it a little bit better." Now, did you handle it better than she did? I think so. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I I did give her a dirty look, though, okay? But besides the point, like, there's that little tiny gap of improvement for me. And so, now what I say, you give away a lot of your control. Your focus is on them and not yourself, right? So, an example in dating, if you ever failed, if if I mean, if you ever failed, if you failed a situation, you know, and you blame them, like, oh, they were the problem. You never really focus on refining your communication, setting and enforcing healthy boundaries, building awareness, right, and actually taking action. And if you don't ever do that, and if you don't reflect on yourself, what do you think is going to happen? Nothing's going to change. If you don't change, nothing else will. And so let's talk about why it's so dangerous then. The reason why it's so dangerous is because it creates a cycle that a lot of people go through. It's the same outcome with different people. Okay. Same shit, different toilet. All right. That's what it is. And so the good thing is you get to protect your ego. You feel great about yourself. You feel morally superior because, like, damn, they fucked up. I don't need to do anything. But the bad thing is, it sabotages a lot of your progress. And so, if you really think about it in this perspective, you can be right about being wrong regardless and still lose if you don't grow from that. And so, what I would like to end it with is if you are being wrong, or if you are wrong, okay, being wrong. If you're wrong, okay, you are the one at fault. You have a lot of control for yourself to improve. But if you were being wrong, you don't control what happened, what already happened, but you get to control how you respond to that. And so growth come from asking like, well, where was I wrong? Where did I make this mistake? And even if I was wronged, sorry, even if I was wronged, what can I learn anyways? And so I really hope this message came across and it made a difference. It made you reflect on it in a different way where you're there's going to be times where you feel like they did you dirty. And when they did, I want you to still take a step back and be like, well, what could I have done better? Okay. What could I have done better? Instead of blaming yourself, I mean, which you can. I tend to blame myself for situations. Ask yourself, what could I have done better in that type of situation? When all the feelings are subside, you're not overly agitated, you're not pissed off. Be in a calm place and ask yourself that same question because if you ask yourself when you're calm and you're excited about life, you're going to have a sense of growth. And when you continue that growth, a lot better things will start coming into your life. And so, if you guys like this message, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share it with a friend. And until next time, I catch you on the next live next Saturday, 12 p.m. Pacific time. All right. Peace.